You are tuned in to Women in the Spotlight Radio, episode number 9. Julie Washington, Chief Branding Officer for Jamba Juice and President of Talbot Teas. Let's go. Welcome to Women in the Spotlight Radio. I am your host, Melissa Dawn Simpkins, President of Velvet Suite and creator of Women in the Spotlight. Every day, women around the world are branding a new model of success beyond their careers. Each week, join me for inspiring interviews with leading women who share their success, struggles, and secrets on the journey to becoming a woman in the spotlight. You will leave empowered and energized to brand your best life so you can sacrifice less and start living more. It all happens right here, right now. The greatest gift you can get in this world is to discover your life's work. And it is a journey, it is a struggle, it is a passion worth pursuing. And today's guest knows a whole lot about what I'm talking about. Her name is Julie Washington. She is Chief Branding Officer for Jamba Juice, and she's President of Talbot Teas. Her whole brand is about healthy, active lifestyle and living from the inside out. And this is not just about the product. This is about the person, Julie Washington. I know her as a colleague. I know her as a mentor. I know her as a champion, a cheerleader, a confidant, a woman who I admire deeply for so many reasons. But one thing I can tell you is that she is credentialed in who she is and what she does. She has done branding at the highest level. And you know that branding is a big buzz term, but there are very few who can walk in the level of credibility of working, leading, transforming multi-million, multi-billion dollar brands, working at companies like Procter & Gamble, the Gillette Company, Nestle, and more. She has done it, but she has not lost her way. You will hear her share her story and how she's had to make hard choices. And as an achieving woman, let me tell you, we are very ambitious. We have goals, and we are going to get them done. But the thing that I love about this interview that you'll enjoy is her candid storytelling about her journey and the challenges and the realities she had to face and the choices she's had to make in living not balanced, but creating a life of equilibrium, a life of total transformation, not just in business, but in mind and spirit and family and health. And that is the essence of the woman in the spotlight leader. She is about aspiring to that level in her personal and professional life, a new paradigm for success. And I totally love this interview, and I believe you will too. Stay tuned. It's my interview with Julie Washington.
Julie, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for the invitation, Melissa.
It is great to have you, and I understand you've been traveling all around the world and keeping up with time zones, so thank you for making a little bit of time for us today. Share with us your journey on becoming a woman in leadership. What has that journey looked like for you?
It's really been a continued progression, and at the same time filled with amazement and surprises. So my natural orientation is a very planned and precise chemical background. So things fit in certain ways. And so I was very clear about receiving my MBA. And then ultimately I knew when I wanted to be promoted to a brand manager. I had it timelined when I would be a director and when I wanted to be a VP. But along the way, with the many different companies I've been a part of, those have been things I could not see when companies were being acquired. And then I didn't see opportunities in my time plan that then came my way, but I was at least open and receptive enough to receive things that didn't fit my plan, and because of my willingness to risk some things and to embrace other opportunities, they have to be some of the moments that clearly accelerated my career, expanded my influence, as well as my contributions to the companies, and I think allows me to sit here today as a corporate officer in a publicly traded company when that actually was not on my destination list, because I was in these major companies like Nestle and Procter & Gamble, and being a company officer just seemed far, far away, and yet I'm able now to do this and have the same kind of leadership, although on a different stage with a different company.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting. Is the listeners who've been following know that every woman that we interview is so unique in their own story, but the ability to be flexible and to kind of, like you said, see opportunity and take it. I remember we met through Procter & Gamble, and I remember hearing a quote from the former CMO, Jim Stingle, and he said, the greatest job I ever took was the one I never applied for. And this whole idea of being flexible in your career, how has that served you well? And is there a moment that you didn't anticipate that actually took you to a greater level than you thought in this journey of evolving in your career?
There are probably two different opportunities, but were both presented by one of my long-term mentors. So the first one was to move from St. Louis with my husband and at that time 2 children, from that role, that comfort of family, to Boston to go work for the Gillette Company. And it was not something I was seeking out, and surely I was not seeking to move to Boston. I'm originally from Florida, so the weather pattern didn't seem to align with my natural tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for what I knew the organization to be, what the job sounded like it would be, and then to work with the leaders that I knew were in Gillette, it was one of the best moves, but it was probably the riskiest move, because now it wasn't just about me moving the way I had been when I was younger, but now it's the first move that we had as a family. So that's my husband moving from his company of almost 20 years and then moving 2 young kids to a part of the country where we had no family support. There wasn't even a cousin of somebody else's cousin that lived in Boston that we knew. So we were really going to, as they would say, to a foreign land.
Mm-hmm.
But it was well worth what I was able to do, to see, to grow and experience, both in my relationship with my family, but also in my understanding of corporate. And it's from that experience, I think, it allowed me to go inside of Procter & Gamble when they acquired Gillette. And then it led me to the job at Luxottica in leading the marketing there for both Pearle Vision and Lens Crafters, and then now sitting at Jamba as a chief brand officer. And taking that role, I wasn't looking for the Jamba role either. That one came as a call, and I actually turned it down the first time. And a couple months later, they came back and said, "Are you sure you really want to do this?" And say no. And all I could think was I wasn't interested in moving to California. And sometimes we miss our opportunities because we impose limits that aren't even there. And they weren't actually asking me to live in California. I actually commute for the last 4 years. I go back to California 1 week a month on average, sometimes more. But that was the agreement. So I didn't have to move my husband and 3 kids in this interest of taking a job with Jamba that was now on the West Coast, and that wasn't on my destination of geographies either. So 2 different reasons, 2 different opportunities, both having their own inherent gift for me. But if I hadn't been willing to take the risk and move to Boston, and if I hadn't opened my mind the second time when the call came to hearing what might be at Jamba, I would have missed both.
Wow. It's so powerful to hear how you really recognize, I was imposing something, a limit that wasn't there, and you really were able to realize, no, I can set the course here. I can create the definition of success for me. And I think many women struggle with that. I think we feel as though we aren't able to, I would say, get what we deserve or get what we really want out of life or out of our careers. How have you managed to overcome real or perceived barriers in order for you to really navigate change in your life?
Melissa, so my undergraduate degree is in chemistry. So I try to take a very factual approach because there are enough ghosts in the dark that we all can see and be afraid of. But I believe if we can deal with the facts that present themselves, um, you can make a more informed decision. And sometimes it's not going to always be my best decision, and it doesn't always get me all the way through a situation, but it puts me on the right course to make a better decision in that second phase. And so when obstacles come, when challenges come, and sometimes those happen within us, not just on the outside imposed by someone else, when you're very clear of what it is that you're trying to do and what you see as the true things that could prevent you from being there, either I'm not feeling that I'm qualified to do something, so really it's about my fear of doing it, not because it's not available, it's because I don't believe I can do it. Then if you can acknowledge it and then determine who does it well, and can I get them to help me, or should I take a class? Once you acknowledge your truth and then find a way to address it, I think you can plow through anything that's in front of you. And you have to have the tenacity and perseverance. I mean, most things don't fall down on the first blow. You might have to walk around the wall 7 times before it falls, and shout in the meantime.
And you've done that, and it sounds like there's something that's in your DNA as it relates to your work ethic that allows you to push past those barriers and allows you to, really go after what you believe is yours and fight for that. How would you define your work ethic, and how did that evolve for you?
I have an older sister, and so Saturdays was like the real day of cleaning. I mean, my mom was serious about Saturday morning. Our house needed to be clean, and she used to have a specific statement that she would reiterate to my sister and myself. It was around anything worth doing is worth doing right. She was talking about making sure you didn't have clean her house.
Right,
but if you
right.
take the concept of what she was saying, I think it formed and shaped my work ethic such that anything that I'm doing, I give 100% to what I'm giving you in thought, what I'm giving you by my hands, the thing that I'm giving to you of my time. I'm 100% present with you when I'm with you, so I'm not distracted. I'm not multitasking when I'm in situations and in relationships. And it all leads me toward striving to be excellent. And so that's just sort of the course and the DNA that I have and what frames me. But I think it was probably rooted into Saturday morning cleaning. If you're going to do it right. Or my mom sort of tagged when she was stressing her point, or just leave it alone.
But with cleaning, she was not going to let you leave alone. That's
no, exactly. Exactly.
I'm
not sure.
Or not.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the other listeners have a true Southern mother in their family tree, but mine was committed to her cleaning of the house. So.
Oh yeah. There was no way around it. Talk to us about your family life. I mean, you have a busy career. You could commute coast to coast. How that's obviously been a great convenience to you to be present with your family and not have to move. But how have you been able to manage that, and what advice do you give to women who are really challenged with integrating different facets of their life and their family with their career as they're progressing forward?
Many people have asked the question and they get to a point of the word balance, right? So how do you balance it all, and how do you have it all? And I think it's predicated upon a couple of tenets. And for me, first of all, I don't try to balance. Remember, the chemist in me would remember the scale and how 1 gram can change the equality of the scale, and so it's a very painstaking process to balance the scales in a lab. So in life, to get to that level of equality and perfection is very hard. So I take more of I'll call it a seasonal approach, that we have 4 seasons in life, and I think our personal lives are very similar. It requires us to have different focal points and priorities at different times. And so, for instance, no matter which company I've been in, there is a season for marketing planning. And my family knows that that's a very intense time, and that the company is going to need more of me than they usually will ask of me. because we have to deliver these annual plans. But the company also knows that my family is my top priority. So there are certain family commitments that I don't intend to miss, and so we need to work my meetings and the company's meetings around these schedules. And so we do our best to plan out as far as possible. But I think another place of importance is taking time for me. And that gets to my physical, my mental, and my spiritual well-being and overall development and growth. Everything should show progress. If you don't see the tree that you planted a year ago growing, something might be wrong with that tree, right? We should show some progression. A baby should at some point begin to roll over, to then be able to crawl, pull up, and want to walk. If not, usually there's time where you're now going to the doctor to say, is something wrong developmentally? And so for me, it's about how do I invest in me? Because when I invest in me, it allows me then to give to all the people, the organizations, the causes that I love and committed to. I can give a whole me and even more of me because I am in a full place versus an empty place. And when you're drained physically or mentally or spiritually, any of the three of those can cause you not to be able to operate at a more optimal place.
Mm-hmm. And what is it about us, I think, as women that we don't want to admit that that is a truth because we feel as though everything else is urgent, pressing? I don't know your thoughts on that, but I think that's very interesting what you said, because we say that, but in the midst of being pressured, stressed, pulled, overextended, we just keep going versus stopping and doing what we know, which is refueling in our spirit, refueling physically, doing the things that we have to do. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'm just curious, why do we say that, but why do we do something different?
I think it's partially because what we see as successful looks like a busy person, right? You don't see people taking breaks. That's not what's in the news. It's always somebody's moving and they're doing, and that's the equation for success. But if you really look into the heart of a thing, everybody has a day of rest. Whether you go back to the creation and say, on the seventh day, he rested, if the Creator can get tired and says, I need to take a time out, then we all need to embrace that you can be successful. You can create oceans and mountains and living creatures. But even in the midst of the profoundness of that creation, you have to rest. And, I've listened to an interview with Tyler Perry. He gets his sleep. As much as he does, that was one of the key takeaways for me, is that he is not up all times of the night and he's not operating on a 4-hour per night of sleep. You have to be able to shut down and put your body, mind, and soul at rest in order to be re-energized for what lies ahead. Otherwise, you're not at your personal best to operate and to deliver and ultimately to perform. And I just don't think we ever see it or hear it enough to believe it and then embrace it as our truth. And so if everyone keeps showing you and saying you need to do all these other things, you start believing and just getting on that same wheel and never giving yourself the permission to maybe zig when everybody else is zagging.
Right. I love this conversation because that's really my heart with Women in the Spotlight, is to show a new model of success. I remember a mentor of mine in business told me that a mentor of his shared with him, who is a serial entrepreneur, very successful, had bought and sold many, many companies, that every year he took 3 months off. And in those 3 months, he would just be quiet and rest, and he'd get his next $1 million idea. And literally, he credited his success to that time where he would just do nothing. And, you think that's a luxury, but the truth is, this was his strategy for succeeding in business, was that he took time to do nothing, to say nothing, to just sleep and be still. And so I think what you said is so true, and we just have to show and continue to reinforce a different model, like you said, versus what we see as activity means productivity. I'm curious about your habits. We talk about successful women. Clearly, you've been accomplished. You've done so much. You give so much, not only to your job, but you're also involved in the community, and you sit on several boards. what is some of the secret habits of Julie as it relates to her morning routine, or the things that she does to kind of keep her ticking throughout the day?
Well, during the school year, it's a very busy time, so I can be up as early as when I'm home and not traveling. But 5:45, the older two, I need to make sure everybody is up and moving and not just alarm clocks going off. And I will ensure that they're on purpose and getting ready for their bus, but also I will sometimes make them breakfast. They're getting older where it's now time for them to start moving in their own direction of making their own breakfast. But that's been a part of what I do. I then will usually come into my office and do some emails to see what's in there that I didn't see in the evening, and then get dressed. And then my third child, having him then get ready for school. And then once they're all out, then I have the full day of doing work. My most productive time is in the morning. So it's important also to know when you're at your best. So I'm at my strongest in the morning, so I have greater clarity of thought in the morning. And because Jamba Juice is headquartered in California, I technically have a 3-hour head start on everyone else. And so I'm able to.
That?
That is, I mean, minus the CEO. My CEO doesn't sleep as often as others. He doesn't get as many hours, but so he's the only person that might be emailing me back. But I'm able to, if you will, get in front of the meetings to be more prepared, but also to be more complete. And then that way, as the day progresses, I'm not, fumbling and trying to prepare myself in the midst of a meeting for the meeting. And then I'm able to then shut down and then cook dinner. Sometimes one of the kids may go with me to go out running or walking in the neighborhood. And then, of course, you have homework to check. And then I try to make sure that I spend one-on-one time with everybody. Instead of just everything being about a family and everybody is together, each one of us has individual time that becomes precious. And you may not want to say the same thing in front of your siblings, et cetera. So I try to make sure I spend time with each one in our family unit. And then I always usually end the day with a call to my mother and check in on her. And sometimes we'll end our time together in prayer. But sometimes I can talk to my mom multiple times in the day, but usually it's at the end of the day because she's a very much encouraging spirit. And so she wants to know, how was today? She may not truly understand everything that went on at work, but she's there to make sure that if it wasn't a great day, how do I make sure that you don't dwell on that, but prepare you for the next day? And so she's just a very good cheerleader and a good way to end the day because she's always going to be positive about what was good in the day, even if I missed it.
Sure. That's so encouraging to know that you realize, and we have to realize that we need that encouragement. A lot of times we're the cheerleaders for so many others, but that you need that yourself. And in the network of women that you surround yourself with, I think is really important as well. Talk to us about your network, your support system. Who keeps Julie up and keeps her on her toes?
A couple of years ago, earlier in my career, I had an executive coach, and he had me to put together, he called it YO Company, Y-O Company. But there have been many books on having your own company and being the CEO of your company. But he had me to write down who served different roles in my company. And so I always take a look at who are the people closest to me that have expertise in certain areas, whether there's my husband usually serves as sort of the CFO because he's ensuring that we know about our money management, what kind of sacrifices or things that we need to do to get things done. But then I may also have people who are in my PR group, who's advocating on behalf of my brand and making sure that where I say I want to go or the opportunities and exposure that I seek to share the message and the stories in this season of my life are being shared with others. Making sure that I have someone that's the sort of the friend that will tell you what needs to be told. The girlfriend in college that would say, I'm sure you don't think you're going out with that on. The courageous friend that will tell you the truth even when you don't like to hear it. So there are a couple of those that make sure that you stay on purpose and that you don't get sidetracked on the things because you say, I'm tired. But people are waiting for you to birth out certain dreams and certain gifts. and they keep you on purpose. And then I have a prayer partner. She's out of Texas. You have to know where your strength is, and so my foundational strength is from a very strong spiritual base. And so I operate and move through prayer, and there are times when you can't pray for yourself when you're going through things, and it's just good to have someone that is a strong partner in my spiritual walk. And so I really encourage everyone to be intentional and write it down as to who plays roles in your life, and that they know what you're needing them to do to help you be the great person that you were created to be.
Mm-hmm. I call it your brand squad. You need that. You need that group, because a lot of times we are fighting to get promoted. We're fighting to, prove our worth and our value, and we feel like we have to do it on our own. And you've been that for me, and I truly believe in what you're saying. And I hope our listeners heard from you and are really taking heart to what you're saying, because it is about surrounding yourself with those who balance you and who help you in the areas where you're not as strong, or who can lift you up when you have moments of weakness. So I love that, and I'm glad to hear that that's something that you've passed along to us, because I believe we definitely can benefit from that. As passing on wisdom, there are many women who are looking to transition in their career. They're looking right now to figure out what's next, and many of them are currently in corporate leadership positions. Any advice or direction or words of wisdom from your experience that you would give in terms of transitioning in your life and in your career, and how you do that successfully?
Sure. I would start with making sure you're clear about who you are. We've talked about it, and you've even shared it, many different conferences and sessions about sort of your personal brand and your personal brand statement. The transition is only effective if you know where you're trying to go. So being very clear about what your passion and your purpose and how you get things done and operate at your best, and ultimately what's going to make you different. When you elect to move from one place to another, a shift occurs, and so you need to know what you're moving from and moving toward. When you have that clarity, I think then you can start outlining the options that you're seeking to take on, and you have to determine your risk level. And I also believe you should have some level of preparedness. You can't decide tomorrow that you're going to leave the situation you were in and just go do something else if you haven't already started laying some foundational tracks and making some networks and having some classes that will fortify your mind, or at least equip you to be ready for this next endeavor. So to me, it's all about being clear on purpose and preparedness for that purpose. And then you have people that come alongside you once they know what you're trying to do, that will start inserting and offering new ideas that you could not have imagined. And it's all because you now told them where you're trying to go. And they're like, oh, yeah, I know someone that can help you do that. But when you don't know, it's hard for someone else to help you in that transition, and you'll feel stuck. But it's because people don't know what to do to get you out, because they don't know what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. And people want to help, but you have to give them direction. You got to give them the things that you see for yourself, and I think those are great tips, just in starting with clarity and getting to understand clarity to help move you in the next direction. So,
Melissa, the other point that I think it's important to stress is being willing to ask for help. There's something about the pridefulness, especially of women, is that I wouldn't want anybody to know that the woman that has it all together, as you would be defined as, needs help. But when you are sick, you will go to the doctor. At that time, you don't really care who sees you, even if it's in the ER. If you're hurting, you go get help. And I don't know why we don't take that same kind of concept in life and say, because I need help, I'm willing to admit I need it and ask someone else to come alongside me to get it. We'll just suffer along. And if anything, it only festers and becomes worse. And I think you can even see it in statistics with breast cancer among African American women. We're in denial. We won't tell people we need help, and we think it'll go away. It doesn't go away. And so that's probably the encouragement, is to move from that place of pride and be willing to tell someone, I need you. And as much as I look like I'm together in this particular moment, in this situation, I can't do this one by myself. And I would really appreciate it if you and others would come alongside me.
I think that was a great additional point, and I challenge our listeners this week to find someone to share that place of vulnerability, that place where you need a little extra help. And just by opening your mouth and saying that, I believe, and I've experienced that really does create a new level of freedom, because if you've held it in for so long, you feel as if no one understands. And there's people who are going through the same thing that you're going through every day. And so it's a great opportunity for you to grow and for us to grow. Julie, you have been so inspirational, so practical with your words and your wisdom and your story. Is there anything left that you'd like to share with the women as we wrap up our time together?
My kids, and they say affirmations every morning. I believe you have to affirm things in your life. And sometimes there's a song that says you have to encourage yourself sometimes. And so I would encourage you to find that affirmation, that truth, that when you say it in the morning, and it's beyond the prayers that you may pray, but what is it that you affirm that you can believe that when no one else is speaking that into your life, you've spoken and reinforced that point. And so learn how to start the day, because how you start a thing has a way of impacting how it goes. And if you can start in a better place, you can only launch from there. And so the mornings are very important. Be sacred both in what you're consuming. So your nutrition is important. Breakfast is one of the most important meals of the day. So you need to make sure you eat right. And if you're not exercising in the morning, make sure at least get the muscles and the blood flowing. But then also make sure you speak into your life the things that you seek. Because once you give the words life, it's amazing what starts coming back. You can't receive what you haven't given out. So the seed of a tree can only give that which that seed is. And so that would be sort of the thought, the encouragement. It's good for as young as you are to as old as you are, is to affirm things in your life, because you only get one round at this.
Absolutely.
And so do-overs aren't permitted in life. So make sure that we give our best every time we come at bat to that day for that opportunity, but it's rooted into your preparedness and your clarity on purpose.
Mm-hmm. So well said and so true. And now, as my grandmother used to say, you can't be held accountable for what you don't know, but now that you've heard it, you got to do something with it.
That's right.
So our listeners, you all have gotten some great wisdom, great words, great practical steps to really take you to the next level. Very simple. And I thank you, Julie, for taking the time out of your busy, busy schedule to share this few moments with us and really making your mark. And we just wish you continued success in everything that you're doing as a woman in the spotlight. You are shining, and we are so grateful that you shared your time with us today.
Thank you so much, Melissa. All the best and continued success and blessings to you and to your listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, all of you all, thank you for being with us yet again. And it is our commitment, my commitment, every time we meet, is to deliver heart and mind-opening interviews that really are from authentic women who are sharing their secrets of success and surprises all along the way.
Thank you for listening to Women in the Spotlight, the only podcast where Wonder Women around the world join forces. Thanks to our sponsors, Velvet Suite, a champion brand leadership firm, and Clockwise Entertainment. Visit our website at womeninthespotlight.com to get connected to our community and our membership. Remember, the world is waiting for you, so don't give up. I'm Melissa Dawn Simpkins. Until next time, keep shining.